first off, here in Grove, and we're only about 3 hours north of where I'm fishing. But in that 3 hours, you guys lose about 60 days a year growing period on your fish. And then the next thing is, down there we have the Florida strain largemouth that you don't have up here. And because of that, these fish grow a lot faster, and they're smarter, and they live longer, and they're very susceptible to fronts and any kind of weather changes. They're very, very finicky fish. But I guide down there. I've been guiding for 28 years now. I'm the only angler in Oklahoma history to ever have more than one fish on Oklahoma top 20 list, the biggest bass caught in the state, and I've had 4 on there, and I've also had 2 clients that have been on the top 20 list. Now, the big bass fishing and the bass fishing in general down at McGee Creek is good all year long because it's a very deep lake, and normally it's a clear lake. We've had some rains. It's not quite as clear as normal, but it is a clear lake. And because it's a deep lake, the bass bite really good down there all winter long. I mean, they school up in big schools out in deep water. The fish we caught this week, some of them are in 40 feet of water. We're catching those fish on shaky head worms and drop shots. But Sardis is totally opposite to that. I've done guided all over there this time of the year just simply because it's a shallow lake, it's very dingy, and the fish get real lethargic and they become hard to catch. If we went to Sardis, if we could catch 5 fish, I'd think we were having a great day, and if we went to McGee Creek and we caught 25 fish, I would think we were having a terrible day. So that's the difference. But what's getting ready to happen, and it just started happening just right before I left. Last day I got to fish last week was Tuesday. I didn't get to fish any of those days when it was really warm, and I'm sure that even changed the fishing a little bit more. But every time this time of the year at McGee Creek, I've got a couple of week period when I'm going to be able to have the best of both worlds when it comes to bass fishing. I'm going to be able to go out in deep water in the mornings, and in that time of the year it's going to be 15, 20 feet deep, something like that. I'm going to be able to go out in this deep water where these fish are schooled up and just catch a whole bunch of bass. And now when I say a whole bunch, if they're not biting very well, you're going to catch 15 or 20, and if they're biting really good, you're going to go, wow, I didn't get a bite on that cast, because you're going to be getting bit almost every cast. And when you're biting really, really good, that means you're going to be catching a lot of smaller bass that weigh a pound, pound and a half, 2 pounds. But you're always going to have a chance of catching double-digit bass there, just simply because there's so many double-digit bass in that lake, and because I target those big fish. So in the mornings, we're going to go out there, we're going to get to catch it. On a normal day, we're going to get to catch a lot of bass, and we're going to get to maybe catch a big one or 2. But during the afternoon, this is kind of what triggers it for me. You're going to, because in the mornings, this time of the year, I don't start till about 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't get out there and get in a big hurry. I like to fish later in the afternoons because it's going to warm up more, and the fish usually get more active in the afternoons. And because of that, in the mornings this time of year, boy, you're going to be all bundled up. And sometime during the afternoon, you're going to go, well, I think I can take my coat off now. It's feeling a little bit better. Well, when you do that, we're going to be in, I've got 2 or 3 different spots that my deep water spot and shallow water spot are only about 200 or 300 yards apart. And when I hear you do that, I'm going to go, hey, we've caught a bunch of fish now. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's totally change everything. Let's go shallow. When I say shallow, 12 foot of water to the bank. Let's go fish shallow. The difference here is when we go shallow, it's going to be all or nothing. It's going to be great big fish or nothing. We're not going to get a lot of bites, especially when it first started. And this just started it's just getting started. It started on me my last 3 trips. But what's going to happen is we'll go up there, and I'm going to put on 1 or 2 baits. And if it's just me and one person, I'll get 2 baits out, and I'll say, which one do you want to throw? And which one they pick, I'll pick the other one. And we're going to go down a stretch of bank for about a half a mile or so. If we get bit, we'll probably go fish another spot. If we don't get bit, then we're probably going to go back to that deep water and keep fishing, because those fish are going to be there and they're going to be biting. Okay, but the difference here is numbers versus quality. And when I say quality, at McGee Creek Reservoir, we could easily shatter the Oklahoma State record down there. We could there's fish down there in way up in the teens. And this is the time of year when you can get them, because out there where we're going to be fishing, it's not like the other half of the lake. Out in the main lake, it's wide open water. It's just deep water with ledges and not very much standing cover. Where up in the creeks, it's all standing cover, and it's almost impossible to get those really big monster fish out of that heavy cover, even with the best rods and reels. But these are the 2 baits that I'm going to start throwing this time of year, and this is and like I said, my last 3 trips. Now, we've caught fish off these banks, and this is the first one that I typically throw this time of the year. And this is a Gene LaRue Biffle Bug. This is made in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And most of the time, if they've ever heard of a Gene LaRue biffle bug, they automatically think of it as being on what they call, Gene LaRue calls it a hard head, but people call it a wobble head. It's where it looks like a football head and the hook's allowed to swing. And that's really good to fish if you're fishing mainly rocks and rocks that are more like flat rocks or gravel, something like that. Now, down where I live, it's chunk rock. It's just big sandstone rocks. It's real chunky. And when I try to throw that head down there, I get hung up a lot. Even when I try to go to a real lightweight head, I still get hung up a lot. And I will tell you, I don't care who you are, if you start getting hung up a lot, you're going to get frustrated. If you start getting frustrated, it's going to affect your fishing. So the main thing is to stay cool, have fun. So what I do is this time of year especially, is I Texas rig this biffle bug, and I'm only going to use about a 3/16 ounce weight. And I've got this biffle bug on a 2/0 wide gap Gamakatsu hook, and this is what they call a superline hook. That's a real heavy gauge wire hook. Now the reason I've got that on a heavy wire hook is simply because when we're out there fishing at deep water, we're going to be fishing shaky hits and drop shots. We'll use 10, 12 pound fluorocarbon lines, stuff like that. But when I go shallow, and the rest of the year when I go shallow, I'm going to be throwing a lot of different equipment. Now this is a 7'3" Chuck Justice Signature Series rod made by Savior Rods. And you can get this online at SaviorRods.com or just SaviorOutdoors.com. You can go online and see these. This is very unique, and I'll tell you more about the rod in a little bit. But more, what this is a 7'3" extra heavy action rod. And this rod I designed this rod, it uses a Bushido blank. A Bushido blank has two things. It's graphite and carbon mix. That graphite and carbon mix gives it a lightweight but extreme strength. This rod has been in my boat. I got it for a living, and my rods lay on the deck of my boat, and my clients don't do it intentionally, but they step all over my rods, they kick my rods and everything else. And this rod's been fished with for over a year now, and it still looks like it's almost like the day it did when I started fishing with it a little over a year ago. They stand up really well. When I design a rod to last me, and if it'll last me a year, it'll last you a lifetime, because I use my equipment, and I don't abuse it, but I use the fire out of it, and I put it through all kinds of stress that you may never put it through. So my rods are extremely good rods. Okay, now the reason I use an extra heavy action rod is simply because this rod is so lightweight that I can use an extra heavy, and this extra heavy won't weigh any more weight-wise than most people's heavy action rod does. And and the reason I want an extra heavy action rod is because I'm fishing for giant fish. I'm fishing for double-digit fish, and I want to be able to control the fish. When I hook a fish, I don't want that fish, I don't want to be hooking it going, oh God, please let me get this fish in the boat. I want to hook that fish and think I'm bringing that fish home. Okay, so I use an extra heavy action rod, and I like this 7'3" length. I like it a whole lot, especially if I'm out in wide open water where I'm casting for distance. Now, on this rod, this is a Shimano reel. This is an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel, and I like high-speed reels. My reel's the slowest reel I have in my boat, 7-to-1 gear ratio. And people, when you say gear ratio, high-speed gear ratio, a lot of people, I can kind of see it on their head, they see buzzbait, because they think, man, you can move a buzzbait real fast with that rod and reel, Well, I don't use that speed for fishing. I use that speed for catching. But this speed comes into play after I set the hook, because I don't want to lose contact with the fish. What I'm wanting to do is I want to keep contact with the fish, and if I can keep contact with the fish and keep that contact coming in my direction, I got a real good chance of getting that fish in. Now, I'm using 25-pound Seaguar fluorocarbon line, and this is InvizX. That's the one that Seaguar makes that I use the most, and I use it almost exclusively. I've tried everything that comes down the pike. I'm always looking for something better, but this is what I found for me works the best. And again, this is the reason I use a heavy wire hook. Now, going back to this hook, I'll give you some insight into the mistakes I used to make. Because I was fishing for big fish, and I was thinking I was going to catch those big fish, and I was automatically assuming that I needed that hook to be further back there where I could get a better hook set. I used to use like a 4 or 5-aught hook on this bait. This bait's only about 3 inches long. And I would use a 4 or 5-aught hook, and I would miss a lot of fish. And I would have a lot of fish that I would barely hook, that would come up and jump, and they would throw the bait, or I'd get them in, and I'd barely have them hooked. And this is finally, a little light came on one day. And this actually came on when I was designing my Justice jig. But this is what happens on any kind of a crawdad bait that you throw, no matter whose it is. If you bass fish very long, and you've ever caught a bass and you saw a crawdad sticking out of its throat, you either saw the pinchers or the tentacles. You never see the tail of a crawdad sticking out of a fish's throat. It's always that. And this is why you need a shorter shanked hook, but you still got to have a heavy wire hook. And this is what people don't understand, is when that fish inhales your bait, it inhales it like this. It's inhaling it where the weight is going into the fish's mouth first. Okay, and you're out there. When you set the hook, because you're out there, the rotation has to take place. In other words, that hook has to turn all the way around. And if your hook is sticking back there too far, what happens is it makes that rotation. It's barely got inside the fish's mouth, or it hadn't gotten inside there at all. You either miss them totally, or you barely hook them, and then you lose them. If you'll go to a smaller hook, you'll get a lot better hooked up, and you won't miss as many fish, and you'll start noticing that your hook's in the jaw, coming out of the jaw, or coming out of its head. It won't be out here hooked in the lip where they're going to be able to throw it real easy. Now, this time of the year, like I was saying, I've got this on a 3/16 ounce weight, and the reason I'm using such a light weight is so that this makes me fish slow. And at speed in the wintertime, water temperature when I left the other day, Tuesday, was 40 degrees. It's going to warm up real fast now, but the colder the water, the slower you got to fish, and the less action you want to put into your bait. When the water's warm, boy, you want to put a lot of action there because the fish are being aggressive. But when the water's real cold, they're not being aggressive. They're moving real slow, and so everything real subtle action. And the speed that you move your bait in the wintertime is almost as critical as the bait itself. I've got video of two young men standing side by side. One of them caught 8 fish in his first 8 casts. His buddy is standing shoulder to shoulder with him. You can see their baits hitting 4 feet apart. The guys throwing the same bait. And the last fish this young man caught the 8 in a row, was an 8-pound fish of all things. He catches this fish. When he got that fish in, his buddy turned around and looked at me and goes, "Do you think I need to change my bait?" And I turned that video camera off and said, "Come here." I said, "Watch this." I turned that camera back on, I rewound it a little bit, and I said, look, he's throwing the same bait you are. You're hitting right by him. But look what he's doing differently that you aren't. And it was even him. It was very obvious. Man, that guy would throw out there, and he would still be waiting for his bait to get to the bottom when this guy was already halfway back to the boat. And he was getting it out there, and he was moving real slow, and man, he was getting bit instantly. That guy picked his rod up, goes back to the back end of the boat, picks his rod up, makes a cast, lets it go to the bottom, moves it about 2 feet, and catches his first fish. What's crazy about that is that really at the end of the day, the guy that wasn't catching them to begin with actually ended up being the better angler of the two. He was just hyped up that morning, was fishing too fast. So, even myself, I know to fish slow. In order to make myself fish slow, I go to a light weight, and a 3/16 on this rod and reel. I don't want to throw much lighter than that. So I'll take this 3/16, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast it, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to fish it one or two ways. Either I'm going to just drag it and barely shake it, or I'm just going to hold my rod about like this, and I'm just going to reel it as slow as I can. And this time of the year, I get more bites, especially just recently. The bites that I'm getting, I'll take this thing out, and I'm in these rocks, and I'll just be reeling it as slow as I possibly can. And the fish hit it. Now, when the fish hit it, and you're moving it like that, this isn't one of those deals where you throw slack in your line and pull up to see if that fish is there. Because when you're reeling it and they hit it, you feel the bite real good. Well, guess what? They feel you real good too. That fluorocarbon line's real sensitive, and so is this rod, and they know something's wrong too. And that's the reason why your rod needs to be down here. In other words, and here's another mistake that I think people make when they're fishing in rocks. It causes them to get hung up. So there's two things. First off, if you got too light of a tip on your rod, you're going to get hung up a lot because your tip's going to get you hung up. It's going to constantly be pulling into stuff and pulling out like this and get you hung up. The next thing is when you're throwing a bait out like this and you're in the rocks, most guys, when they first start fishing with me, and I tell them real slow, they put their rod tip down and they're real slow. And what they don't understand is, as they're pulling that bait in, they're pulling it into the cover. Every time it comes up to something, it's coming into it. Where if you'll hold your rod up here in a hook setting position, right about here is where I like to set the hook on when I'm reeling this bait in like this real slow. If you'll hold it right about there, what happens is you won't get hung up near as much because your bait's coming up and over every time it hits something. And every time it comes up and over something, it's giving it more action. So just holding that rod tip up there, less hang-ups, a lot more bites. And when they hit that, when you're moving it like that, you can't do this. You can't drop that rod tip, reel down, and then come back and set the hook. You got to have it right here so when they hit it, you jack them right then, because when they hit it, they got it. It's in their mouth. That's not a thump that's they're trying to blow water at it. They are actually hitting it, and they've already got it. So you set the hook as quick as you can. Now, this is where the 7-to-1 gear ratio comes into play, because when I set that hook, I'm gonna tell you what, most of the time when I hook big bass, and most of the time when I'm bass fishing, I'm not making real super long casts. A long cast for me would be if I cast from here to those tables right over there. That would be a long cast. Most of the time I'm catching my big bass from here to this red boat or closer, right in there. And when I hook these fish, because they're still, very green, or my dad used to say, well, they're still full of piss and vinegar, well, they move real fast. And a big fish, the bigger they are, the faster they can move. And the deal is, if I set the hook on one and it comes straight at me and I lose contact, it's going to probably jump between me and the boat. It's going to throw my bait. But if I can set the hook and I can take this high-speed reel and keep that rod torqued, and when I say set the hook, man, but it's not like when I'm up on the bass tub and I can take those fish and I grab my bait. Well, if I wanted to catch them, I could go like this, because if they go anywhere, they're going to hit a glass wall. But out in the real world, there's no glass wall there. And when you set the hook, if you don't turn that big fish, when you set the hook, that means it's going to a very bad place. It's going to a place you don't want it to go. So when I set the hook, and I'm not a big guy, but when I set the hook, I can put you in the back end of my boat. I got a 21-foot bass boat, and you can look the other way, and you'll know when I set the hook, because I'm going to move the boat. I'm going to make that boat move a little bit. And when I set the hook, everything happens. It automatically happens. What happens is, I take that rod, when I get that bite, this is normal fishing now. This isn't fishing like this right here where I'm talking about reeling it. But when I'm fishing this, the other way that I'm fishing, where I'm taking it and I'm dragging it, I'm shaking it like this. The difference is between reeling it and doing this is this right here. When I'm pulling it like that and I shake it, and I stop it, that's when they hit it. So they hit it on a semi-slack line, and when they do that, they're going to inhale it and move off with it, because the bait's sitting still. See, when the other way, the bait's already moving, they're inhaling it, so they get it instantly. This way, they're going to inhale it and turn and move with it. So, but when they do that, this is what's going to happen. When I'm in that situation, I'm going to bend down like this. I'm going to bend my elbows. I'm going to bend my knees. I'm not going to let this rod touch my body yet. And I'm gonna reel down to here, and with my line, I'm gonna try to meet that fish, and I'm not gonna do this super slow motion. That fish hits, I'm dropping this down here, and the hook should happen right there. I'm gonna drop it down like this, and when I get to right here, when I set the hook, I'm bringing everything I got. I straighten my body up, I straighten my knees, I bring my elbows back, and I try with everything I can to turn the handle on this reel. And I turn that fish, and I try to make that fish on the hook set turn toward me, because if I can get her turned on the hook set, man, 90% of the battle's over with, because that means she's coming to me. And this is where the high speed, one of the places where it comes into play. I'm going to take this high speed reel, and I'm going to get that fish from there to right here, and this is basically 14 feet. Is basically what that is. It's about 7 feet of line and a 7-foot rod, and this is where we're going to play it. This is where the big fish gets played, is right here. No further away than that right there. Wherever it wants to go. Because this right here, this is all my backyard. In my backyard, I know where everything is because I can see everything. And what I'm going to let her do is, if she wants to go this way, if she goes that way, I'm going to make her pull my arms down. And as she gets right about here, I'm going to take that rod, I'm going to put it in my belly, and I'm going to turn her. When I turn her, I'm not going to jerk her, I'm going to turn her. I'm going to turn her real slow. She'll go out there, she'll pull real hard, she'll make a turn. And as she makes that turn, they'll make a little U, and then they'll go back this direction. They nearly always, whichever way they turn, they're going to go back the same direction, but they're going to make a U and do it. And I'll go out there and turn, and when I turn them that second time and bring them back to the boat, they're almost given completely out. And it happens that quick. And then, instead of having your buddy up there jobbing for that big fish with the net and missing it and knocking it off and breaking your line and everything else, you can actually go up there and lift that fish if you want to. When I had my TV show, I never used a net. I caught a lot of big fish on that show, and that's how I rear those fish out. And you can tell, I wasn't one, like Jimmy Houston is a very good friend of mine, and I've known Bill Dance my whole life, and I laugh, especially at Bill Dance, the way he fights those fish, because he fights them. He's on a private body of water, and he'll let them things fight and fight. Sometimes I feel sorry for the fish. He lets them fight so much, because that's hard on the fish itself, especially if it's warm. But anyway, I like to get those fish up there, get them in the boat, take pictures of them, practice CPR, catch, photo, and release. Now, this biffle bug is what I'm going to start with. Now, the water temperature is going to be in the low mid 40s right now, and the reason I'm starting with this is because it's got kind of a small profile. As the water warms up, I'm going to go to another Jingaroo bait that's called a rattling crawler, which is similar to this, but it also has a slower fall. It's a little bit bigger profile. one of the baits that I catch fish on year round, but this is one of the baits that I'm already catching fish on, and this is a swim bait. This is a swim bait. This is a 5-inch one. I won't actually tell you what brand this is. There's several companies out there that make a swim bait that look identical to this. One of the reasons I like this particular one is you can see I can barely move that bait and that tail just wobbles like crazy, and what that means is when I'm pulling it through the water, I can pull it extremely slow and still get a lot of action. Now again, when I rig this, I'm rigging it basically the same way I had that other bait because I'm using this in shallow water and I'm expecting big fish. So it's basically the same thing. It's a different reel, but it's a high-speed reel, same rod, same line. The difference here is when I fish a swim bait like this, a plastic swim bait, I use a weighted belly hook. And that does two things. First off, it ensures that that bait's always running upright where the hook's up on top, which ensures that you're gonna get a good hookup when the fish hits. And the next thing is because that weight is on the belly right there, as you reel this bait slow through the water, the tail wobbles like this. But with that belly weight on there, the body itself starts wobbling like this. So all of a sudden you start getting this wobbling action that looks more like a real swimming action. And when I fish these, this is the way I've got these rigged. I took those off the boat 2 days ago. This bait right here's got teeth marks in the head of it. You can see where I caught fish on it just the other day. This is one of the colors I throw the most. This is a color called Sexy Shad. And one of the things I do, if you'll notice, there's a little bit of chartreuse on the bottom of that tail. And if you'll notice, it's just on the bottom of it. And actually, that looks like more than what I put on there because after a day or two, it'll actually bleed upwards a little bit and it covers a bigger area. But I usually just put a little bit of that on there, and I always tell people that's kind of like going back to when you went to the prom and you took your girlfriend to the prom, and all the girls that are there are pretty, but you want your girl to stand out in the crowd and be the prettiest one. Well, that's what I'm doing with this. If there's a bunch of shad out there, I want mine to stand out in the crowd. So I'll put that little bit of chartreuse on there, and people say, do you really think that makes that big of a difference? And I always tell them, if you want to catch a bass this big, no. But if you want to catch a bass this big, yes, because this isn't real. It's a piece of plastic, and you're trying to pull a predator into thinking it's real. Now, another neat thing about swim bait is most of the time, I reel it as slow as I can because big bass, again, they're a lot like humans, man. Big bass, say for instance, when you're 16 years old and you just got your driver's license and you come in at home and you think, I want some pizza, well, you know what you do? You jump in your car because you want to drive all the way across town and get that pizza and see all your buddies and everything. But when you're 40 years old and you've been out working all day and you come home and you think, boy, I'd like to have some pizza, you don't drive across town, you call and have them order it and have them delivered to your home. Well, big bass gets the same way, and it's that slow action almost all year long with the swim bait that catches me the really, really big fish. Very seldom do I catch a double-digit fish when I'm reeling this thing very fast. When I'm reeling it shallow or I'm reeling it deep, not always, but most of the time I catch my really big bass, double-digit bass when I'm moving it slow. This is a bait, if you're a tournament angler, you need to start throwing this some because my dad was what I call a power fisherman. My dad was a really, really good bass fisherman, and he fished spinner baits and crank baits. And the time that it would take me to get from here to that wall, my dad would do it 20 times. I mean, he would be backing down, he would move so fast, and he caught a lot of bass. And my dad passed away in 1994 and never caught a 10-pound bass. Since 1990, I've caught 188 bass, 10 pounds or bigger inside the state of Oklahoma, and had 4 top 20 fish. And the biggest difference between me and my dad was at the speed at which we fished. And what I'm going to tell you about this in tournament angling is as a tournament angler, if you're on a lake and you hear these guys going, man, there's a good spinnerbait bite, or if you're a spinnerbait fisherman, I'm not saying every time, but if there's a spinnerbait bite going on, if you'll throw this swim bait, you may not get near as many bites, but every day I'm willing to put my biggest fish up against your 5 biggest fish every single day. One of the things that in these 188 bass that I've caught over 10 pounds, only one of those was caught on a hard bait. One of them was caught on a spinnerbait. All the 187 other bass were caught on either soft plastics or my Justice jig with the soft plastic trailer on there. That's what they're caught on, slow moving baits. So just remember, slow moving baits, bigger bass. Now on the size of these swim baits, I actually just went up, this is a 5-inch and this is the one I throw the most. If I only had one, this is the size I'd throw. Now, a month ago when I was throwing this, I was throwing a 4-inch because the water was even colder than it is now. But this summer, when the water gets to be 80 degrees or above, I'll probably go up to a 6-inch. And that's a real good rule of thumb when you're bass fishing is this. The colder the water, the smaller the bait, the hotter the water, the bigger bait. And just remember, when the water's temperature, the surface temperature gets 80 degrees or above, a bass can swallow 1/5 its own body weight. That means a 10-pound bass can swallow a 2-pound bass, and will try to swallow things bigger than that. So in the heat of the summer, you can't throw a bait too big for a trophy bass. Now, I am a trophy bass fishing guy. I am here booking trips. I have a booth just right down here. If you'd like to come down and book a trip, I've got some cards and brochures. If you'd like to come and book a trip, by all means, come on down there, we'll do that. Or if you'd like to show me a picture, or if you'd like to see the rods and reels, whatever you'd like to see, I'll show it to you. Now, one more thing I just about forgot about was I told you I was going to tell you about this rod and reel. This rod right here is very unique. This is a Savior rod that I designed for Savior Outdoors. This rod and reel, we have a patent on this right here, and we're the only rod company in the world that has this. This is your insurance policy that you will never again lose your rod and reel. What happens is, and we patent all this, if for any reason this rod and reel falls in the water, after about a minute of being totally submerged, water starts to seep through this membrane right here, and it goes inside of there. Right behind this high flotation device is a spool that has 60 feet of 20-pound test braided line connected to that. And that's connected to the inside of this rod. Right behind that spool, there's a salt tablet in there that looks like the cylinder on a 6-gun. And right behind that is a real big, heavy-duty spring. As that water seeps in there, it dissolves that salt tablet, and when that salt tablet disappears, that spring goes off, and when it goes off, it goes off. It's got some force. It kicks this rod away one way, this pops up the other way, this comes to the top, you go over there, you pull it up, and you get your rod and reel back, and it's just that simple. And even if you have a fish jerk this out of your hands, that fish will not be able to keep this under the water. If that fish quits swimming and the water's less than 60 feet deep, you'll be able to go over there and get your rod and reel and get your fish too. So just remember, no more losing your rods and reels. And this rod, basically it sells for around 180 bucks. And this is I designed this rod. I designed this rod to be used by me and my clients. And when I say used by me, I fish 250 days a year. This rod's a year old, and it looks like it's brand new. If it lasts me that way, it'll last you a lifetime. It only costs about $10 to get the reloading kit that reloads this, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Well, I hope I told you or showed you something that'll help you catch more and bigger bass. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. And I hope I see you out on the lake today or tomorrow or this year, and you're going, hey, Chuck, come here, I want to show you this big old monster bass I just caught. God bless you. Talk to you later.